Hello book lovers and welcome to Book Talk Radio Club. My name is Claire Perkins and welcome to Book Talk Radio Club. My name is Claire Perkins and today I'm talking to author Desiree Poole. Desiree is the author of Rachaels, A Life Interrupted. The book is based on Desiree's grandmother's true life story of secrets, love, deceit and betrayal. Born in British Guiana, Rachael's story begins from her birth in Georgetown and goes on to London, Paris and New York, where we learn about the 9 children she bore and why she is what's called a black widow. Let's find out more, shall we? Hello Desiree, welcome and thank you for coming on Book Talk Radio Club.
And thank you to Claire for giving me the opportunity to bring Rachael's story to your listeners.
Oh, my pleasure. Desiree, I love how you start the book with a prologue, and I'm going to read this. I'm 82 years old and my memory is failing and fading quickly. Some days I live in a fog. I am fully aware that everyone seems to be strangers to me. Some days I relive my youthful days and think I am still living with my young children. I sometimes relive the good times and the challenging times of my life. Some of these memories occur with such clarity that I feel the emotions associated with those experiences. It immediately captured my attention. This prologue, the start of it, just captured my attention immediately. Tell me about Rachael. What kind of woman was she? Obviously, without giving too much away of the story, of course.
Okay, thank you for loving that part of it. When I wrote that particular piece of the book, I tried to capture where Rachael was at that time. She was losing her memories. They were going in and out. There were times when you could speak with her and she'd understand everything and she would relate some of the stories to me. And there were times when you knew she was not there anymore. She was just, living like in the moment.
Yeah.
She was a very complex person. I would say complex because she was many things to many different people. Even when you speak with her children, every one of them had a different view of her, and what I found when I wrote the book and I had the book club meeting and people were, trying to garner more about her, she was the same. I think I captured what she was because she was many different things to many different people. There were some children who thought she was cruel. There were some who thought she was fun-loving. There were some who thought she was smart. And to me, what I took from it and why I wanted to write about her is that she was a smart woman in many, many ways. But she also had many flaws. And those flaws influenced the rest of her generations and, of course, in different ways, but they turned out to be some successful people in certain aspects of their life, and I'm very proud of them.
The prologue also goes on to say, I am called a black widow. Why was she called a black widow?
That's a kind of colloquial term, in the Guyanese culture.
Okay.
So, black widow spider is supposed to be the spider that when it meets with the male, it's kind of mythical that the male dies. But I told her too, I said, I don't think you're really a black widow. But in the Guyanese culture, what that was is that, if you're like your third or fourth marriage and somebody says to you, okay, so what happened to your first husband? Well, my first husband died. So what happened to your second husband? My second husband died. Okay, so what happened to your third husband? He died. It's not the divorce; it's the death of the male that makes you label the person a black widow.
Why did you decide to write a memoir of your grandma's life?
Whispers, like I said, secrets. So I remembered I was probably about 7 years old when her niece. And her niece was probably like 4 or 5 years older than me. That niece told me, she said, oh, your grandmother had 17 children. I said, what? We're 17, I only know 9. And you died, but I can only account for 9. So, of course, I went to my mom and I said, so, my cousin told me that, Rachael had 17 children. She said, what? And then I said, so where are they? She said, I don't know anything about that. And furthermore, that's my mother's business. Don't discuss it. So, of course, you're telling a child don't discuss anything. That just piques your curiosity.
Of course.
I kept listening, like all kids do. I kept hearing. And every time I hear, the more I hear, the more it intrigued me.
Mm.
She was a contrast to me. This was a woman who, in the 1920s, was a school teacher. And the 1920s in Guiana, being a school teacher. And what I found is that even around the world, a lot of people said that to me. Even in America, 1920s, a school teacher is kind of an anomaly. So I looked at that and I wondered, so what went wrong? What happened? What went wrong for her? Yeah. So that's why I decided to write.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Tell Book Talk Radio Club's listeners about Rachael's parents and the kind of life they lived in Georgetown at the turn of the 20th century. I found it absolutely fascinating. And thank you for the pictures you sent, by the way.
Yeah, I did a lot of research too, because the most that I had was descriptions of her life from her, and some from my mom, some from other members, older members in the family.
Right.
She lived, Guiana at that time was under the British rule. And, the Afro-Guyanese community had started, I'd say, blending into the ruling class society.
Right.
And her dad was an officer in the British Guiana militia. And so they lived in that, middle to upper class community. And so it was a unique place for her to be in. And then, so this will then explain to you how she could become a teacher, because she lived in that social, that social arena.
Right.
And so it was a beautiful city. The architecture was British, some Gothic, but a lot of, beautiful white buildings everywhere. And the way she described the house that she lived in, you drove in, and then you had the quarters, the maid quarters, then you walked up a stair, and then you had the sitting room, the living room, the kitchen, and then there was another floor with bedrooms. And she was into the social life where you had balls that you went to, you had tea parties, you had coming out parties, and not coming out as it is today, but coming out, as a young girl, and blooming into womanhood. And she really enjoyed a very beautiful life until, her first major tragedy that she encountered as an adult.
Although you've changed some of the names to protect anonymity, how did your family react to you writing and publishing Rachael's story?
Well, there are different factions, right? So, her children that are alive, probably like 6 of them alive, and her adopted son is still alive. To my surprise, they were all okay with me writing the book.
Right.
I would say they were happy, but they were okay with it. My siblings loved it, and they're very, very supportive. And to me, that was the surprise.
Why's that?
Because I thought I would have more of a pushback in terms of the content of what I had written.
Right.
I tried very hard to limit what I wrote, because there's so much more to her life than what I wrote. But
sure.
I tried to limit it to her childbearing years.
Right. How do you think Rachael would have reacted?
I think positively. Yeah, she in at the end of her life, when I was talking with her and trying to get all the information from her, the one thing she said to me is that she lived her life on her terms. She said as she went along, she made decisions that she thought was best for her and for the children, and there is nothing she can do to change all of that. And she said, if you listen to the song My Way, you would understand that's the way I felt about life. I did it my way. She said, I have a few regrets, but they were just a few. Most of the relationships that I went into, she said I went into them making those decisions based on what I wanted from life.
Right.
I think she would have been quite fine with what I wrote.
Your description of the social standards and life in British Guiana is so interesting and descriptive. How much research did you have to do?
I did a lot of research, and we don't really have a rich history of written work. But what I did was try to get all the older folks that I can find. Mm. I spoke with my friends' mothers. I spoke with some older friends I had. I tried to confirm within the family, the things that, Rachael told me. Because like I said, some of her memory was failing. So if I felt that something she said to me, was not really true, I tried to confirm that with other relatives or, the older folks, about the kind of life they lived, the kind of parties they went to, what the social scene was, what the political scene was like and all that stuff. Yeah. It was a good research and the internet helped a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's always interesting to speak to people that were around at the time, isn't it? You get a totally different slant on things.
Yeah.
You emigrated from Guyana to the USA 33 years ago. How different was Guyana then to British Guiana when Rachael was a girl?
When Rachael was a girl, we were a British colony at the time, and we gained our independence in the 1960s, 1966 actually.
Okay.
And then we became a republic in 1970. In 1964, I'm going to tell you one important thing about, our process of, becoming independent. 1964, the person who was ruling was Prime Minister named Georgetown, and he made it possible for people like me to attend one of the best schools in Guyana. So before then, you either paid or you had to, you had to be in a certain class, which is like from Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
I think he started it in 1963. I think that was the first time, but in 1964 he made it even better. He made it so that it was purely merit. So throughout the whole country, wherever you were, we all sat the same. You call it a common entrance exam. We sat that, and if you passed, you were allowed to go to the best schools in the country. So that is one thing that I know for sure impacted education.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Simple as that.
Yeah.
You're receiving some wonderful reviews, including an enjoyable and well-written story of survival. It's hard to stop reading a chapter without wondering what happens in the next. Rachael's life was as fascinating as it was heartbreaking, and it's amazing that she kept going through it all. And another review says, this is an engrossing story of a woman's trials and tribulations. Great storytelling and compelling characters, hard to put down once you pick it up. Desiree, what was the best moment for you, the first review or the first sale, and why?
There are a couple of good moments. The sales will come if the book is good. I really enjoy reading the reviews, but more than ever when I gave my family to read the book and they started telling me, what they thought of the book. And the majority of them, I'd say like 95% of my family who read the book said it's a really good book or it's a bestseller. I really appreciated that, and I really loved having their feedback more than anything else.
Oh, that's wonderful. So will we be hearing more about Rachael?
Yes, I'm going to be writing. If you read the book, you would realize that Sarah was an important factor in Rachael's life. And Sarah happened to be my mother. So I am in the process of writing her story. Her memory is fading too, but I got so much more from her than I ever got from Rachael. So I'll be writing from the child's point of view. Because Rachael had her life, she lived it, she's gone. Now, you leave your children behind, what happens?
Yes.
So we'll be writing her story from the child's point of view, which is vastly different to how she lived her life.
Fantastic. So where can Book Talk Radio Club's listeners purchase Rachael, A Life Interrupted?
Yeah, they can go to Amazon.com. It's available in Kindle and in print, paperback print. Barnes & Noble, BNN.com. It's available in print there only. It's not in the Nook as yet. And next week, it will be available on Audible. So people who only like listening to books can then be able to get it.
Good, because I love listening to books.
I know.
All right, well, thank you, Desiree. That was really interesting. Please come back on Book Talk Radio Club again. I'd love to chat with you and hear more. In the meantime, good luck for the future. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Book Talk Radio Club. Thank you very much, Desiree.
Thank you, Claire.
My pleasure.